Howard Chapman is known around the Lowcountry for two things: traffic and transportation. He spearheaded a lot of projects here in the Lowcountry, and now he wants to be the next town council member for Mount Pleasant Town Council. I sit down exclusively with Howard for a special edition of Quintin's Close-Ups. And if you haven't already, subscribe to my YouTube channel and download my free Quintin's Close-Ups app in your Apple or Google Play stores.
The man who needs no introduction, Howard Chapman. It is a pleasure to have you here on Quintin's Close-Ups.
Well, Quintin, I'm honored that you have invited me because I saw you on CNN with Don Lemon. You did a great job.
Oh, thank you.
That was great. But as you know, I'm running for town council.
Sure.
And I'm running on the idea of bringing back civility and respect back to our council to move forward in the right direction.
What has the respect been like on town council in your mind?
Well, not only when you're there seems to be backbiting and all, but in the press has documented the argumentativeness of what's going on. You can't get anything done that way, and what has to happen is council has to understand that you deal with an issue, and once that issue is over, you go on to the next thing, just like nothing happened. And that's the way you get things done. You have to work together in order to improve conditions for the citizens. The respect issue has to be both ways. And they also have to respect the job they're doing as well as the citizens so that things can get done. I've had the pleasure of working with 7 mayors in Mount Pleasant.
Right.
So I've watched how things can get done. I've also had the pleasure of working to improve transportation in Mount Pleasant as the first traffic engineer. I was on the Planning Commission because of former Mayor Holman.
Yeah.
He and former Mayor Billy Swales both asked me to be on the Planning Commission. I eventually became chairman of the Planning Commission. In doing that, I was able to convince some developers to reduce some of the housing. I was able to convince them to add sidewalks and turn lanes into new subdivisions. Most developers want to do the right thing because it's a financial issue for them. They want to do the right thing, but they have to be asked. You have to know what questions to ask. I've worked with a number of councils in my lifetime of public service. You know, I was the founding executive director of Carter.
Right.
I had 18 board members.
Right.
6 of those were mayors. Also the chairman of county council, a number of council members. We got along. We got things done. And that's what I hope to be able to do with town council. And also by working with these people, working with various councils, I can hit the ground running when elected by the citizens of Mount Pleasant.
What questions do you have now about growth and development in the town of Mount Pleasant?
The second item on my campaign is managed growth. Growth has to be managed. Growth and change are inevitable, but you can manage the growth by having a completed comprehensive plan. Our comprehensive plan is required by state law to be adopted by the end of this year. It still hasn't been adopted. Once you have a comprehensive plan, you can then model your zoning ordinances on that plan. So it's critical to get that comprehensive plan that, by the way, was developed by a group of citizens within the town, as well as the Mount Pleasant Planning Commission. The Planning Commission, working with the citizens, developed a very good plan. The council has to adopt it. And it's already almost the end of October. So we're not going to have a lot of time. But by state law, we've got to have a comprehensive plan adopted and revised by the end of this year.
How responsible, Howard, is the town of Mount Pleasant been so far when it comes to growth in your mind?
Well, in terms of growth, there are things that I think could have been done better. But you have to remember, when you're sitting there on the council, you have to be able to ask the right questions. You have to look at the development and say, maybe this is a little too ambitious. Maybe we can reduce it a little bit. And you have to be able to work with developers, but you have to grow. There's no question in my mind. You have to grow in order to have a balanced budget. You have to be able to have that increase in taxes, increase in budget in order to provide the services that the residents of Mount Pleasant have become accustomed to. We have a great staff on working for the town. What we have to do is manage the growth to be able to grow responsibly. And that's what I hope to bring to town council.
Safety integrities of your neighborhoods. You said this on your website, quote, as Mount Pleasant continues to grow, I will make decisions to ensure the safety and integrity of its neighborhoods. We all want safe communities for our families and future generations. Tell me this, what decisions need to be made now in regards to safety in Mount Pleasant?
Well, what I was referring to is when I was on the planning commission,
Right.
we would have developers come to us thinking they could get away with anything, building fast and loose, the street systems, the houses. What I was able to do, working with members of the planning commission, is convince the developers, number one and most important for the safety of the residents, is to have sidewalks. They didn't have to do it, but they knew that if they didn't, they might not be able to develop. So I was able to convince developers to put in sidewalks. Also in a number of subdivisions where they were on the main highway, such as up in 10 Mile area, Gadsdenville area, I was able to convince developers to put in turn lanes so that when you're turning into your residential neighborhood, you're not taking your life into your hands by not having a lane in which to reduce your speed and to turn safely. So those are two things that I hope to bring to council and convince developers to do. I also, by training, will be able to review the traffic impacts of major developments that come in. I was the one that was looked at to review those traffic impact statements and say, oh, wait a minute, we might need something. We might need you to put in a turn lane or a traffic signal, which is what I did with the Midtown.
Right.
And developers are required to put in a traffic signal. It's right across from the school. That's part of the minutes. They didn't have to do it, but they knew that it was the right thing to do, and we convinced them that that was necessary in order to have the development. So what I hope to bring to council is the ability to ask the right questions, and in working with the developers to build a better Mount Pleasant.
You talked earlier about houses. Let me talk to you about a big issue that's going on right there. It's affordable housing.
Yes.
How do you look at it? Is it affordable housing, attainable housing, or workforce housing in your mind?
Well, Quintin, one of the issues with our traffic is that we have a lot of employees, whether it's the town's employees, whether it's service employees, whether it's people coming to work in the office buildings, that are coming from West Ashland, they're coming from North Charleston, they're coming from Goose Creek. I talked to a staff member with the Recreation Department on Sunday, who happened to be working at the new gym was built.
Right.
I asked him where he lived. He lives in Monk's Corner because he can't afford housing in Mount Pleasant. We need to do better. And I intend to work with people like Thomasina Stokes Marshall, like Chris Brooks, and like several other people who are interested in doing something better for affordable housing. We had some guidelines before, the ordinances that the town had. The developers were required to put in a certain number of units that were part of affordable housing. We don't have that anymore. We've got to do something better. We might have to do a referendum. I don't know the full answer, but I pledged to work with former council member Stokes Marshall. I've pledged to work with Chris Brooks to come up with the best plan, and then to be able to have somebody enforce it. That was the problem before. We didn't have the enforcement capabilities on the affordable housing. And as such, after a certain length of time, those units went back on the open market. We've got to do better, and our citizens need to understand that it's critical to help reduce traffic.
You talked earlier about the developers, and I just spoke to you about affordable housing. If you were on town council, what incentives do you want the developers to bring in as far as putting back into the community that they have developed housing in?
Well, obviously, you have to look at some financial incentives, and that's kind of what we had before.
Okay.
But those financial incentives were only as good as the enforcement, and we weren't enforcing as best we could. So that's one thing. Also, different types of zoning and in different places. You got to look at where density is available, where the land use allows for some increased density. So that increased density can go towards the affordable housing. It has to be on mainline transit routes because that's what we need to do to make transit not only more acceptable, but more usable. And we do have transit service in Mount Pleasant, but I think we can do better.
When you think of public transportation, what else should Mount Pleasant need right now?
Well, I know, for example, downtown, they have the DASH system.
Right.
That DASH system is free.
Right.
It's free. So people use it, and it's throughout the downtown area. We also have express buses going from Mount Pleasant to other parts of the community, plus coming to Mount Pleasant. Maybe that express bus that goes from West Ashley to Mount Pleasant, maybe we need to have circulator routes operating from different locations where we're doing the off-site parking, circulator routes from there to take people to town hall, the employees at town hall, to take people to the shopping centers where they work, to take people to the hotels and motels where they work, near the office buildings. So probably circulator routes working hand in hand with the express buses would be a good start. And potentially the town could help pay for those. That's what happens with the city, where I know the State Ports Authority kicks money in. I know College of Charleston kicks money in. Medical University kicks money in. So maybe we can look at ways in which to not only have the town help pay for that, but also some of the other employers who need access for their employees.
Would you consider having a circular route somewhere near Shem Creek?
Well, again, depending on where the nodes are for parking, yes, a circulator route within the main central business district of Mount Pleasant, which is basically from the Isle of Palms connector to the Ravenel Bridge.
Right.
That area is the most congested. So yeah, that'd be a good start. But it really needs to bring people from the off space parking where people are using for the express buses, for the park and ride.
Park and ride. And let me stay right in the Shem Creek area and you just mentioned this a second ago, density. Obviously, that's been an issue recently on town council.
Yes, sir.
If you were on town council today, how would you vote for density on Coleman?
Well, I think density on Coleman is a little difficult because of the residential being right behind it.
Right.
So you've got single family, in most cases residential, being back behind the businesses. Now, I know recently there was an issue with the storage facility that was coming to the town, and the idea was that storage facility was going to be developed in the county, one way or the other. And I know there was a lot of discussion about whether to add a certain height level, which is not enormous, but a little bit larger height level, and then stepping it down to get closer to residential neighborhoods. I think council did the right thing. I think that was the right decision. I know a number of people were not happy with it, but it could have been developed without all of the development requirements that the town has. So that being the case, if it was developed and going to be developed, why not have it developed in the town? And to the town's credit, they negotiated with the developer and I think came up with the right decision.
And let me get back to Shem Creek, because you said this in regards to cleaning Shem Creek. You said this, quote, "Our natural resources make our town a better place to live. One of our most beautiful natural wonders is Shem Creek. Shem Creek must be cleaned up and kept clean. It's the perfect place to enjoy everything the South Carolina coast can offer." How should Shem Creek be cleaned up now?
Well, DHEC has done a study of the conditions in Shem Creek. And we have spent millions of dollars to attract people to Shem Creek by building a park, by building areas where you can walk along Shem Creek, which is wonderful. We've got businesses that have paddle boards, kayaks, and the like, putting people in the middle of Shem Creek. But what we have failed to do is look at the condition of Shem Creek. DHEC says it's got to be cleaned up. It's not safe for people to be in and touching the water. You know, I wouldn't want to be on one of those paddle boards and fall in Shem Creek with the conditions that DHEC has stated. We need to work with Mount Pleasant Water Works. We need to work with the businesses that are along Shem Creek and the residents to look and see where the most bang for our buck is to get Shem Creek cleaned up. Whether it's the emptying of the shrimp boats into the Shem Creek, whether it's the emptying of wastewater out of the restaurants, whether it's the issue of housing septic tanks, which some people have said that's part of it. A solution between the town and waterworks, I think, can be developed. And if that means reducing the cost of tying in to regular town sewer system, or whether it's reducing the cost of taking out the septic tanks, or doing better with the ship boats that are along there, whatever it is. I don't have the answers. I just know we have to work together to get it cleaned up because it's one of our biggest natural resources. And again, we've spent millions of dollars to attract people to come there to use that water resource within our town, and yet we haven't cleaned it up. It needs to be cleaned up.
How much money should the town of Mount Pleasant use to clean up Shem Creek?
Well, I think we need to start with DHEC's report.
Okay.
I don't have the numbers, but I think we need to start with DHEC's report and then have a study done working with commissioners of waterworks to see what we can do quickly. What the easiest thing is to start with. You got to take that first step. Got to be a solution that gets you the best possible answer on cleaning up. I'm an engineer.
Yeah.
I'm not a water and sewer engineer. I'm a transportation engineer. But I know enough to go out and find somebody who can give us those answers and go and pinpoint where the worst problems are and start with that to get it cleaned up.
Another big issue right now, I talked with Brenda Corley about this for Quintin's Close-Ups last week, was this: single-member districts versus the other form of government. Where are you with that, Howard?
It's a good question. And the reason I say it's a good question is I've talked to a number of people, including former state senator Arthur Avenue.
Yeah.
And he and I came to a good decision. If you want to have single member districts, if you want to have a strong mayoral form of government, we need to combine those two, not do them separately. They need to be combined. That's what you have in Charleston. That's what you have in Charleston. If we're going to really act and be like the fourth largest city in the state of South Carolina, we need to do some things to help get there. And one of those is to have a referendum that combines strong mayor form of government with single member districts and do the election at the same time as the mayoral election. So those people, for example, who may be afraid that by having a strong mayor and then whoever else is elected to council, they won't have a voice. They will have a voice with single member district. And likewise, those people who think we need to have a strong mayor, lots of people want to know who that mayor is going to be, because that's going to be part of the decision in making that vote, yes or no. So I think you need to combine the two and do it at the same time as the mayoral election.
If you were to be elected on town council soon, what would you do on day one?
Well, what I do on day one is not walk in and think I know everything. I can tell you. What I go in is try to be a team player.
Okay.
You know, I played 3 sports in high school and 2 in college. So I know how to be a team player. But I would look at some of the critical issues first, like transportation, like getting the comprehensive plan done, like cleaning up Shem Creek, and try to meet with the staff members and the committee members who have worked on those issues or not, and find out where they were and try to get started. And like I said, having worked for a number of communities and worked for 7 mayors in Mount Pleasant, I will be able to hit the ground running when elected to town council.
Howard Chapman, thank you so much for your time. And God, I've been doing Quintin's Full Stops for the past 7 years, and you are always at the top of my list. So thank God I'm able to interview you right now.
Thank you, Quintin. Thanks for the wonderful job you're doing, trying to bring about all these issues so that people have an informed vote. Yes. And I hope they vote for me.
There you go. God's best to you.
Thank you very much, Quintin.
Thank you.